About Mr. Akua. Mr. K.J. Akua is a leading authority on increasing the achievement of today's students. As a recognized master teacher, Mr. Akua has been an invited presenter and co-presenter at regional and national conferences, school systems, colleges, and universities. With a culturally relevant approach towards closing the achievement gap, he is known for his dynamic, interactive presentations to teachers, parents, and students.
Mr. Akua has 14 years of teaching experience in Virginia and Georgia public school systems. In 1995, he was selected Teacher of the Year for Newport News Public Schools in Virginia and was also selected one of Ebony's Magazine's 50 Leaders of Tomorrow. Additionally, he has been an invited lecturer for undergraduate and graduate courses in teacher education in Georgia State University and Clark Atlanta University. Deeply committed to culturally relevant pedagogy and the development of culturally relevant instructional materials, Mr. Akua has written and published several books in the parent-teacher guides designed for students today. His book, A Treasure Within, Stories of Remembrance and Rediscovery, was nominated for the NAACP Imaging.
Mr. Akua earned a Master of Arts degree in Education with a concentration in school counseling from Clark Atlanta University. It is a cum laude graduate of Hampton University, where he earned the Bachelor of Arts degree in Education, concentration in English education.
Mr. Akua is a committed volunteer with several youth mentoring and leadership academies and college preparatory camps for middle and high school students. He has helped lead over 1,000 students and parents on trips throughout Ghana and Egypt through the Desert Club Teen Summit 1000 program. Mr. Akua is frequently called upon by education, civic, and social organizations to speak about educational excellence and cultural knowledge. At this time, we would like to welcome Mr. Chike Akua to our campus.
You recording that? You just said that?
It's 11:59 on the clock of destiny. And life is like a minute. Only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon you, can't refuse it. Didn't seek it, didn't choose it. But it's up to you to use it. You suffer if you lose it. Give account if you abuse it. It's only a minute, but eternity is in it. And with that minute, you, me, and we can change and transform the world. Now, if you really believe that we in this place can change and transform the world, would everyone please say Ashe? Ashe! Be stronger than that. Ashe? Ashe! See, Ashe means I agree. This West African word means let it be so. But it also represents the activating energy and the presence of the Spirit that is both within us and around us at all times. And so I'm going to use that word Ashe as a call and response this afternoon, because when I say something that I want you to remember, I'm going to use that word Ashe. When I say something I definitely don't want you to forget, I'm going to use that word Ashe. But you don't have to wait until I use that word. If I say something that taps your spirit or touches your soul, if I say something that was something that you weren't aware of, if I say something that leads to an instant awakening, then you can use that word Ashe, and that lets me know that we're all on the same page. Ashe?
Ashe!
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, let me tell you what an honor, a privilege, and a blessing it is to be here at Pride Academy. Please give yourselves a wonderful round of applause. And I want to definitely give a very, very special thank you to the young ladies who introduced me. Please give them a round of applause. To our principal, Mrs. Thomas, please give her a round of applause. And back to those that contacted me and found me on Facebook and YouTube, Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, please give them a strong round of applause. Our topic today, brothers and sisters, is going to change your life. So I want you to strap in and get ready, because what I'm going to share with you this afternoon is going to change the way that you look at the world, and it's going to change the way you look at yourself, and it's going to change the way you look at your classmates. Ashe?
Ashe!
Wonderful. Our topic today is in the form of a question, and it is, what does it mean to be black? Subtitle, The African Origins of Math and Science. African Origins of Math and Science. Wait a minute. I didn't know math and science started in Africa. And to that I respond, stay with me for a minute, because as I said, I'm about to revolutionize your world. I want to begin by bringing you greetings from the Teacher Transformation Institute, where we use standards-based, research-driven, culturally relevant instructional strategies to increase student achievement. Now those are just some big sounding words to say that we know that you're brilliant. Ashe?
Ashe!
Unfortunately, outside of this school, there are a lot of educators who don't know that children that look like you are brilliant. And so we go into schools and school systems, community centers, churches, and other places of worship, colleges and universities, and we work with teachers and parents and students to bring them up to the level of excellence that we know is possible. Ashe?
Ashe!
Also want to bring you greetings from Saba Academy. This is a school in Lithonia, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta, Georgia, that me and my wife have started, and we're in our first year. Please give my wife a wonderful round of applause. And lastly, AfricanOriginsOnTour.com. This is where we're illuminating the link between history and destiny. Now, brothers and sisters, the presentation that you're going to see this evening, this afternoon, is part of a much longer and larger set of presentations that I do relative to African origins. We have African origins of writing and mathematics. We have African sacred science. In addition to that, we have African origins of our faith, magnificent black women in history, wonders of West Africa, and the majesty of the Moors, the African influence in early Europe. This is just the African origins presentations that I do. And I'm giving you an idea of the vast body of knowledge that is out there that reconnects us to our roots. Ashe? Ashe. But it is the tradition of African people that whenever we gather together, we always begin first by giving honor to the Most High, who is known by many names and worshipped in many ways. Certainly the one source and the one force through which we all live, move, and have our being. Ashe? Ashe. We also give honor to our ancestors, because there's an African proverb which says, if we stand tall, it is because we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors. Or as Dr. Jacob Carruthers has said, indeed our stride is wide because we're walking in the footsteps of giants. Ashe. Ashe. Thank you. Ashe. All right, I'm going to count down from 5. When I get to 1, I want everybody to stand up straight, strong, tall, and silent. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Oh my goodness, you missed the silent part. You missed the silent part. Have a seat, have a seat, have a seat. Let me try one more time. Let me try one more time. Let me try one more time. I'm going to count down from 5. When I get to 1, I want you to stand up straight, strong, tall, and silent. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, much better. Repeat after me, please. I'm a student seeking to be a scholar.
I'm a student seeking to be a scholar.
Wait a minute, it's got to be in unison. I'm a student seeking to be a scholar.
I'm a student seeking to be a scholar.
Standard is excellence today and tomorrow.
Standard is excellence today and tomorrow.
I'm disciplined, focused, and on time.
I am disciplined, focused, and on time.
I'm organized, respectful, and responsible.
I am organized, respectful, and responsible.
I am on a mission to elevate myself.
I am on a mission to elevate myself.
My family.
My family.
My community.
My community.
And humanity.
And humanity.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Right, you may be seated. Give yourselves a round of applause. All right, brothers and sisters. This presentation that I'm going to do for you is a very important visual presentation. You may have heard it said before that a picture is worth what?
1,000 words.
1,000 words. And so there are going to be some things that I'm going to share with you today that if I didn't have my pictures, if I didn't have my visual documentation, you probably wouldn't believe me. So it's important that you look carefully with your two physical eyes, but don't stop there. You got to look with what our ancestors called the ujat. Everybody say ujat.
Ujat!
Ujat is the third eye, the eye of all-seeing enlightenment that allows you to see beyond the physical level and into the mental and spiritual dimension. And it reminds me of the powerful words of Mr. Bell Middleton, who said, sharpen your eye and tune your ears so you know what you see and understand what you hear. If y'all are ready to get started, everybody say, let's get it.
Let's get it!
Keep your eyes on the screen, because I'm sure you've heard it said before that all life on planet Earth began in Africa. And what I want to do is I want to show you some of the original names and show you how life began to evolve. All life began where this big red arrow is, in the Great Lakes region of Africa, in Central Africa, in what today is Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. And then civilization began to spread up the Nile River Valley, because the Nile River was the world's first cultural superhighway. It facilitated communication as people sailed up and down the Nile. It facilitated transportation, getting from one place to another. It facilitated irrigation. They used the water to irrigate their crops, and thus civilization. Ashe?
Ashe!
And so as we look here, the original names tell the whole story, because the original name of Africa, one of them anyway, is Al-Kibulan. Everybody say Al-Kibulan.
Al-Kibulan.
Look at what that means. Land of the spirit people. That should be very interesting to you, because the reason that we were called the spirit people is because we were spiritual in everything that we did. We brought spirit to reading and writing. We brought spirit to language and literature. We brought spirit to mathematics and medicine and architecture and astronomy, and every subject of study we understood had a deeply spiritual component. And then, when we look at some of these great empires that sprang up along the Nile Valley, I want to give you those original names too. So what we today call Sudan in ancient times was called Nubia. Everybody say Nubia.
Nubia.
What we today call Egypt in ancient times was called Kemet. Everybody say Kemet.
Kemet.
What we today call Ethiopia in ancient times was called Kush. Everybody say Kush. I'm hearing a little bit of stirring here. Everybody say pause.
Pause.
You know, when I was doing this presentation several years ago down in Alabama, I had just spoken at Tuskegee University's Biomedical Symposium. And they loved the presentation so much, they said, Mr. Akua, you got to go to the local high school, Booker T. Washington High School, and do this presentation. And I did. And there were about 200-300 high school students in the audience. And when I got to this part of the presentation, and I said the original name of Ethiopia is Kush, the entire audience fell out laughing. And I didn't know why. So it became a teachable moment. I said, I didn't know I said something funny. Why are you laughing? And they said, Mr. Akua, when we say Kush, we're referring to marijuana drugs, right? Hold on. That became a teachable moment, because I said, isn't it interesting? Somebody took the name of your sacred, holy homeland and turned the meaning of it into something that will get you locked up. Turn it into something that'll get you locked down. Turn it into something that'll get you high. And by the way, how many of you all, just by a show of hands, you don't have to say anything, but by a show of hands, how many of you all know somebody who's locked up? Let me see a show of hands. Keep your hand up. Look around the room. That is not an accident. Hands down. So then, we had to take it to science class. Everybody say science.
Science.
When we took it to science class, I asked the question, did you know that inside of your body is so incredibly made. The Creator made your body so incredible that in order to experience or feel the high that some people smoke to get, or some people get drunk to get, in order to feel that high, you don't have to smoke or drink anything. All you have to do is understand that the chemicals that produce the high are already in your body. Ashe?
Ashe.
You can feel high 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Ashe?
Ashe.
When you reconnect to your history, your culture, and your ancestors. And so as we look at these original names, again, they're very, very important. Now I want you to look very carefully at this particular picture, because you're looking at some of the African origins of writing. And for those of you who are sitting a little bit closer, I'm going to need you to help me. For those who are sitting in the back that may not be able to see this, when you see this kind of writing, what do you call it? Those of you all that are up front. I heard it. Hieroglyphics, okay?
Hieroglyphics.
One problem. That answer is not incorrect, but it is incomplete. Because hieroglyphics is a Greek term. But this is not Greek writing. It's African writing. So I'm going to give you the original name in just a moment. But let me find out also, when you see this kind of writing, what nation do you usually think of?
Africa.
You should think of Egypt, okay? Interesting, because Egypt is not an African word either. I'm going to give you the original African word. The original name of Egypt was what? Who remembers?
Kemet.
Right? That's very important. I'm going to show you why in just a moment. But here's the other thing. When we look at where this writing originated from, it didn't originate in Kemet. It originated to the south in Nubia. And these drawings go back over 8,000 years to 6,000 BCE, before the Common Era or before the Christian era. Ashe? Very, very important. So now, look at the word for this writing is metanetcher. Everybody say metanetcher. And imagine my amazement when I found out the translation of metanetcher means word of God. Wait a minute. I said, wait a minute. When you think of word of God, what do you usually think of? Church. I said, man, you did not know that the stories coming out of the biblical text originated in Africa as well. Ashe?
Ashe.
It might be hard to say Ashe to that because you might not learn that in church. But it means word of God, sacred utterances. When the Greeks came down into Kemet to study from your ancestors, they referred to it as hieroglyphics, which also means holy writing. Now, we need to break down this word Kemet because this is going to be very important for what I share with you. Here it is, written in metanetcher writing. Notice now, because we're going to go through each of these characters, each of these drawings, and find out what they mean. This charred or burnt piece of wood represents the K and the M sound. They did not use vowels the way that we do today. You may see people add vowels to ancient Kemetic words, but that's to help you with the pronunciation. Ashe?
Ashe.
But in ancient times, they didn't use vowels the way that we do. So this charred or burnt piece of wood represents the K and the M sound. The owl represents the M sound, and then the bread loaf represents the T sound. Now in metanetcher writing, you have something that's called a determinative. Everybody say determinative.
Determinative.
And a determinative, as you can imagine, determines what the rest of the word is referring to. So this by itself means black. What does this mean by itself?
Black.
But when you add the determinative, X with a circle around it, it means nation. So together, what does this mean then?
Black nation.
Nation. This is very, very important because I promise you what I'm sharing with you now, you will not see on the History Channel. You will not see in National Geographic. You will probably not see it on television. Ashe? Ashe. There's a reason for that too. And so as we go a little bit further, I need for you to understand the original name for what we today call Egypt. In ancient times was called what? And that means Black Nation. Stay with me because I want to find out, well, who were these ancient Africans and what did they look like? Let's take a look. This is King Amenhotep III. I want you to take a look at his nose. I want you to take a look at his facial structure, his lips. And in comparison to this modern day African American brother, who some of you may recognize. Do you see the similarity? Can you see some similarities there? All right? Let's take a look, because it doesn't end there. We can take a look at King Khafre. Let's look at his profile, the nose, the lips. I said, I've seen that face before. Man, where have I seen it?
Kobe. I know Jonathan feels sick right now.
All right, hands down. Y'all got to let me get through this. I know it's exciting, isn't it? Because these things aren't in your history books, are they? Okay? And here's the thing. I have to preserve my voice because tomorrow I'm speaking to over 1,000 high school students in New York. So I need for y'all to work with me. Ashe? Ashe. All right, so if my hand goes up, I need you to bring it down because I want to make sure I get all of this to you, okay? So when we look at this picture now, this is Amenhotep III. Again, look at the facial structure, the nose, the lips, the cheekbones, even though they chiseled away his nose, because I saw that he looked very, very similar to another brother by the name of Dante Robinson. Take a look. He's got the locks, the beard. Everybody see that? Okay, And then I was listening to some music one day, and I come across this picture of Queen T. I said, man, she looked a little bit like Mary J, right?
Mary J, baby.
I know you've seen this before, right?
Calm down. It's just a dude.
A couple of years ago.
It's just a man.
A couple of years ago, I was working a summer program. And T.I. was the person who put the summer program on for young people just like you. And he wanted to expose them to some enrichment activities. And they asked me to come in and do some presentations like this. And I was really interested in meeting him, not because I'm a huge fan or anything, but because I wanted to ask him a question. He calls himself the King of the South, okay? And I was interested in meeting him. He and Mayor Reed of Atlanta were to come to the program on the last day of the program, but unfortunately I didn't get a chance to meet him because I was on my way out of the country leading a tour in Africa, okay? But this is the question that I want to ask him when I do get a chance to meet him. You call yourself the King of the South. Did you know that over 5,000 years ago, there was another brother who called himself the King of the South? And he was the founding king of Kemet, who united Upper Kemet and Lower Kemet to form one strong nation. Ashe?
Ashe.
So maybe through your music, maybe through your videos, maybe through your entertainment and everything that you do, maybe your purpose is to bring our people together as well. Ashe?
Ashe.
These are the things that you begin to understand when you study about our history and our culture. So now as we go a little bit further, again, we see African origins of writing. This particular glyph goes back over 4,000 years, but we know Africans were writing long, long before that. I just call this to your attention so that you can see them writing on their palette. They're copying the Meta Netra, the sacred writings. Now this writing thing is very, very important because ancient Africans documented everything that they did. But in order to do that, they needed a better way than to carry around large stones with their writing on it. Ashe? So they went down by the banks of the Nile River and they cut down these tall stalks called papyrus reeds, right? And then they cut them into thin strips and laid them horizontally and vertically. And then they took this instrument right here and began to pound it to make it nice and what?
Flat.
Nice and flat, nice and smooth. Then they would set it out in the sun so that it could what? So that it could dry. Once they did that, they had papyrus. Everybody say papyrus.
Paper.
Notice now, that's where you get the word paper from. Every time you pick up a notebook, a book, a magazine, a newspaper, you should think of the gift of writing that your ancestors gave to the world. Ashe? Ashe. Now let's take it a step further because that's Mentuhotep. Everybody say Mentuhotep. This is a brother who ushered in a prolific era, the literary era of writing in Kemet. Black people were writing long before Mentuhotep, but during his reign, there was a lot more writing and documentation of the great things that were going on in Kemet. This is scribes with a master teacher overlooking their work, just as you have master teachers overlooking your work. And I want to pause right here and right now, because I want y'all to give a serious round of applause for all of your teachers. I say? Brothers and sisters, it's very important that you honor, elevate, and celebrate your teachers because they're in it to win it and they go through it with you every day. Even when you don't feel like being here, they're here. Even when you don't want to do what you're supposed to do, they're there to help you step up to your highest level. Ashe? So always elevate and celebrate your teachers. Now this is C-Shat. Everybody say C-Shat.
C-Shat.
This is one of our magnificent black women in history. This is an astronomer priestess. Question. What does an astronomer study?
Space.
The stars, right? The stars in space.
Space.
And so oftentimes you will see her pictured in leopard print. You can't see it very well from where you are. But you see her pictured in leopard print because the spots of the leopard represent what?
The stars.
The stars in the sky. She is called the mistress of writing and measurements. The keeper of records. She is credited with developing the Meta Netra writing system because she needed a way to document her astronomical measurements as she was calculating the movement of the stars. Ashe?
Ashe.
This is one of our modern day C-Shat. Dr. Mae Jemison, the first black woman to go to space. But before she went to space, interestingly enough, she grew up in the south side of Chicago, in gang territory. And interestingly enough, she did not let that make her stray from her vision and her goal. And not only did she go to Stanford University, she went to Stanford University when most people are only in their second or sophomore year of high school. She was only 16. What? And then, before she became an astronaut, she became a medical doctor, a chemical engineer, and she was fluent in 4 languages. Ashe?
Ashe.
For one of our modern day Sechets. Now this is Ptahhotep. Everybody say Ptahhotep.
Ptahhotep.
And Ptahhotep has written the oldest complete text in the world. There are texts that are older. There are older African texts, but they're incomplete because some of them have been destroyed. But he wrote the oldest what?
Complete
text in the world. Everybody say pause. Pause. If I were to go back to your classroom with you, and I were to look inside your desk or your locker room or your book bag, wherever you keep your books, if I were to go through your books, if I were to go through your science book, or any science books in East Orange, from K to 12, would I see anything about Sechet? Yes or no? No. You need to ask yourself, why is that? You need to ask yourself, whose knowledge is worth knowing? If I were to go into any literature book, K through 12, would I see a picture or any of the writings of Ptahhotep? Yes or no? You need to ask yourself, why is that? Whose knowledge is worth knowing? Because when you don't see the pictures and the images of your ancestors, you begin to think that somebody else created all of this.
Very true.
Ashe? Ashe. And you don't know the ancestral tradition that you must live up to. And so let's read some of Ptahhotep's ancient wisdom to see if it will serve us well today. Let's read this together. 1, 2, 3, read.
Strive for excellence in all that you do, so that no fault may be found in your character.
Ashe?
Ashe.
He has plenty of wisdom to share with his ancient wisdom that would serve us well in modern times. Now, brothers and sisters, some of you may be familiar with my book, A Treasure Within. In this book, young people just like you go back in time and they have ancestral encounters to learn about their history and their culture. Raise your hand if you'd like to read. Let me see a show of hands. Those who are like, oh, wonderful. Well, if we have time, before I leave here today, one of you might win one of my books, but you may have to answer a question or two. Ashe? Pay close attention, all right? All right, now, this is the Ams Mathematics Papyrus. This is one small portion of a much longer scroll that has all kinds of mathematical problems and solutions. Now, on this scroll, you have examples of algebra, trigonometry, sine, cosine, tangent, cotangent, square root, area, circumference, volume, and much, much more. Much of the things that you're all going to study when you get to high school. Ashe?
Ashe.
Now, you may not be able to read the writings of the men of nature, but you see some shapes that you recognize, yes? Yes. All right? So, what is that shape that you recognize?
A triangle.
All right, great. So let's make a hypothesis, which is an educated. Yes. All right. What do you think this ancient mathematics worksheet was used to build? What do you think? Just call out your answer. Call out your answer. I heard it. All right, okay. You're absolutely right. It's a pyramid. This is the first pyramid, the step pyramid at Saqqara. But wait a minute, y'all going in here, we got this linguistic confusion again. Pyramid is not an African word, that's a Greek word. So let me give you the original African word. It is mir. Everybody say mir.
Mir.
And what does mir mean? Mir means, watch this now, mir means place of ascension. Place of ascension. Vocabulary question. Does ascend or ascension mean to go up or to go down?
Down.
Your final answer?
Down.
Ascend means
Would he going up?
okay. Wait a minute. So if this is called the place of ascension, I want you to think about why that is, because we're going to come back to it in just a moment. But you need to understand that the step pyramid was constructed. Oh, wait a minute. Now every time you see that face right there, I want you to replace that face with your face. Because I got to a point where it wasn't enough for me to see it in a magazine, a newspaper, on TV or on the internet. I had to go back and see it for myself. And that's what I want you to do. I want you to go back and see it for yourself. So anytime you see that face, in your mind, I want you to replace that face with your face. So who's that in that picture? Me! Who's that in that picture? Me! Because you're going to go back and you're going to see it for yourself. All right? So now, I got it right up on the step pyramid. I'm right up on the step mirror, and I took this picture because I wanted you to see how massive it was. In ancient times, it was not brown crumbling stone. It was polished white limestone. And not only that, here is some of the limestone that's left. But the Arabs came along after thousands of years later, and they chipped away the limestone and used it to build their buildings in the city of Cairo because they didn't understand or appreciate our culture. And brothers and sisters, I want to tell you, no one will understand or appreciate your culture until you do, until we do, all right? Okay. So there's some of the polished white limestone that's left. It was constructed by this man named Imhotep. Everybody say Imhotep. Imhotep was the first recorded physician in human history. First doctor. Architect of the step pyramid, mathematician, advisor to the king, multidisciplinary genius. Ashe? But do you know when I travel around the country? I've been to, several years. I've been doing 35 cities, and some of those cities 2 to 3 times each. Ashe? All these different cities I travel to, many of the young people that have heard the name Imhotep have not heard it for this reason. They heard the name Imhotep because of a movie. Y'all know what I'm talking about? What movie it is? Okay, because it was out about 14 years ago. But when I was still a classroom teacher, this movie was hot. You've probably seen it. It's called The Mummy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Let me take you back. In the movie The Mummy, there was a character named Imhotep. Was that character a good and righteous man or a wicked and evil man? Wicked and evil. So at that time, I was teaching 7th grade. And my students told me, Mr. Akua, you got to see this movie. This movie is awesome. It's incredible. It's special effects and everything. I said, what's the name of the movie? They said, The Mummy. I said, what's it about? They said, well, there was this man named Imhotep, and he was putting curses on people and trying to kill people. I said, hold up, wait a minute.
Hold up.
They try to hold up.
Wait a minute.
So I said the historical Imhotep was the first recorded doctor in human history, architect of the step pyramid, mathematician, advisor to the king, multidisciplinary genius. They said, well, in the movie, he was trying to kill people. I said, wait a minute. If what you're telling me is true, that movie is an insult to African people. Yes, they were like, man, Mr. Akua, ain't that deep. It's just a movie. I said, no, it is that deep, and it's not just a movie. But they still wasn't quite feeling me yet. So I said, listen, what if 5,000 years from now, somebody decided to make a movie? And let's say that they create a wicked and evil character. And let's say they give that person the name, I don't know, Martin Luther King.
Wow,
You're responding the same way my students did. What if they gave him the name Barack Obama?
We have to fight.
Watch this now.
We're going to have to fight.
So when I mentioned Dr. King, my students said, they can't do that. I said, why is that? They said, because he was a good person. He tried to help people and bring people together. I said, I just told you the historical truth about Imhotep, but here's what gets me. You don't know your history. People can tell you anything about your history. And here's what gets me. Have you paid your money to be insulted? I said? No. In other words, when we pay our money to be insulted, we're paying people to continue to insult us by putting out movies like that misrepresent us. I say? To go a little bit further, we talk a little bit about Imhotep and a number of ancient and modern African leaders in the book Reading Revolution. All right? This is one of our modern day Imhoteps. Dr. Ben Carson, raise your hand if you have read the book Gifted Hands. Let me see you show of hands. Wonderful, wonderful. Hands down. Not the movie, the book. Okay. So, Dr. Carson was the first person in human history to successfully separate Siamese twins joined at the head. I got to take you back to science class. We're going back to science class. Standardized test question. Here we go. Hands up. I want to see if you're ready for the question. Did you see me counting down with my finger when I get you one? All right, hands down. So we got Siamese twins joined at the shoulder. We got them joined at the hip. But what makes this operation to separate them more difficult than if they were separated at the shoulder or the hip? Call out your answer.
Brains.
Brain, okay? So doctors, the very, very few doctors who even attempted this, one of the babies would always what?
Die.
So they stopped even trying. But Dr. Carson believed that he could do it. And he started doing research. And for 8 months straight, he started doing research. And he pulled together an international team of 70 surgeons. And at the age of only 33, when most people are still in medical school, when they're still doing their internship or their residency, he's making world history by successfully separating Siamese twins joined at the head. Now, brothers and sisters, I want you to listen very carefully to what he said at the press conference. Because when the news reporters came to him, and they said, Dr. Carson, how do you feel about what you did? The first thing he did was he gave honor to the Most High because he's a very spiritually centered brother. Ashe?
Ashe.
The second thing that he did, he made a very controversial statement. He said, I'm so glad that this made international headlines because I'm a black man that is not an athlete or an entertainer. Was he hating on athletes and entertainers?
No.
Not at all, but he was saying we can do more than run and jump and throw and catch and shoot a ball. Ashe? And that's what I want you to understand. Believe me, I'm not against athletes or athletics. I love, watching the games and things of that nature, but I need for you to understand that we can do more than that. Ashe? Ashe. So as we move forward, I need to see whose third eye is open and awake. How many pyramids or mirror do you see in this picture? Call out your answer.
3.
Let's count them out together. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, hear you. 4,
5, 6, 7. Like what up?
When you give your answer, say your answer, then close it so we can move on. Ashe?
Ashe.
Right, so of the big three, which one is the Great Pyramid? A, B, or C? Call out your answer.
B.
Anybody else? Anybody want to change their answer?
C.
All right, here's C.
C.
Can I get a drum roll, please? The correct answer is C. Who said C?
I said T.
Stop lying.
Take it to math class now. We're going to math class now. Because this is like math class. It's not enough to have the right answer. You got to know why the answer is what it is.
Correct.
The question is, why is C the Great Mirror or the Great Pyramid? And the answer is this. Before I went to Kemet and saw it for myself, I always thought the one in the middle was the Great Mirror. But I discovered that it's closer to the camera and it's sitting on higher ground. This is the Great Mirror, okay? 481 feet high, covering an area of 13 acres. This entire school campus probably doesn't even cover 13 acres, Ashe? The base of the pyramid covers 13 acres, okay? And then, when you go inside the pyramid, did you know that there are passageways? So there are passageways lined up with stars and constellations, letting you know that our ancestors were master scientists, okay? Then when we take it a step further, did you know that some of those passageways are open for you to go into? But here's the thing. Not inside the Great Pyramid. They've closed that for research purposes right now. But this one right here, Khafre's Pyramid, this is a brother that looked like Kobe Bryant. It's open. But they tell you before you go in, the opening is only this high.
What?
It's only this wide. So you got to hunch down low. And it is literally about 120 degrees in there. Literally. Okay?
You might have to take a mud hook.
So,
Okay, so Colin would be able to fit in there. Jerry would be able to fit in there. I put on some shorts.
raise your hand if you would go in. Let me just see a show of hands of who would go in. Okay, wonderful. Hands down, hands down.
Take off my shoes, take off my shirt, put on some shorts.
Here's what you got to do.
Hand air conditioner.
You got to hunch down real low. And you're walking in a straight single file line, and you're going down a descending corridor. Is descending going up or down? Down. Down. So you're going down a descending corridor, an eighth of a mile under the ground. Then you come up an ascending corridor. Which way does ascending go? Up. And that's about 100 yards. And there's a straight single file line of people coming out that are rubbing shoulder to shoulder with you. Very tight, very cramped. I shake. And then, once you go all the way through, you come into this, that's part of the tunnel right there. And then you come into this chamber. Now, do you see Madam Nectar writing on the wall? Yes. Trick question. Do you see Madam Nectar writing on the wall? No, but you do see some writing, yes? Okay. The writing on the wall is not Madam Nectar. Is Giovanni Belzoni. And Giovanni Belzoni was an Italian conqueror who broke into the pyramid, or the mirror, because he was looking for treasure. Okay? And what do you call it when you write your name on something that does not belong to you? You call it out? Graffiti. Vandalism. And I can take you all throughout the land and I can show you graffiti and vandalism written in all sorts of languages by people who didn't understand or appreciate our culture. Ashe? And no one will understand or appreciate your culture until you do. A few years ago, I took my son on this journey. An 11-day journey throughout the motherland. I told you that I take children your age. Okay? You can see where Belzoni broke into the pyramid right there. That's where we're standing, right in front of it. But these are some of the young people that we took on this journey. Who's that in that picture? You. Who's that in that picture? Ah, you got it. You got it. All right. Okay. So, who's that in that picture? Me. Now, that's a picture of you standing in front of the Great Mirror. Some of y'all are taller than me, some of y'all are shorter than me. But imagine this now. The Great Mirror is 481 feet high, covering an area of 13 acres. 201 stair steps to the top. But the stair steps are not like the steps into the school. The stair steps come up to my shoulders. There are over 2.5 million stones in the Great Mirror alone. And they weigh an average of 2.5 tons. Let's take it back to math class. How many pounds in a ton? 2,000. How many pounds in 2 tons? 4,000. So then 2.5 tons is 5,000 pounds. Do you know, with all of our so-called modern technology, we don't have any cranes that can lift stones like that today. But then, there are several stones in the king's chamber that weigh 70 tons each. People still don't know how your ancestors built this. Ashe? As a matter of fact, it's such a magnificent engineering marvel that there's some people, watch this, there's some people who say this is so incredible, it couldn't have been built by human hands, it must have been built by aliens. How is it that everywhere I go, people know that answer?
You think so? You think it's aliens?
Did you know that when you hear people say that it was aliens who built the mirror, the pyramids, they haven't done their research, they haven't done their homework. All we have to do is go to the Am's Mathematics Papyrus, problem number 56, along with a number of other problems, and you can see where they were figuring out the slope of a pyramid. They developed this over time. As a matter of fact, they also made some mistakes. Here we have Imhotep's step pyramid. Then Seneferu comes along and says, I don't want a step pyramid. I want what we call a true pyramid without steps. He tries to do that, but he made a mistake measuring his angles. And now they call that the bent pyramid. Do you see where he made a mistake right there? Yes. The angles are bent. But then he went back to his drawing board, to his laboratory, and redid another one, and it's called the red pyramid. I don't have that up here, but it is the first true pyramid. Then his son, Khufu, came along and built the Great Mirror. His son, Menkaure, came along. That's the brother that looks like Kobe, and he built the second largest pyramid. And then his son, this is Khafre, and then Menkaure built the smallest one. Okay? And so what we see is over time, generation to generation, people were improving on their math, their science, their building, and construction. Ashe? Ashe. So I wanted to get right up on this so you can see how massive it was. Remember, it was not brown crumbling stone. It was what? Polished white limestone, and the capstone is missing. Here, the capstone was made of pure gold. I want you to imagine what that must have looked like, okay? Now, how high is 481 feet? I want you to get a visual on this. Do you know that we could take the Statue of Liberty at 151 feet, and we could put it on top of itself 3 times, and it still wouldn't be as high as the Great Pyramid? Just to give you an idea of how massive it is. Who's that in that picture? That's you standing next to some of the polished white limestone that's left. Now, brothers and sisters, we're going from Africa now to America, and I'm going to show you how this knowledge was used to build America. Ashe?
Ashe.
This is where my pictures are going to become even more important. All right? So, we've got the Lincoln Memorial here. If you haven't been there, I know you've at least seen a picture of it before. Ashe? Most people don't know when they're looking at a picture of the Lincoln Memorial that they're looking at an exact replica, an exact copy of an African monument. Ashe? Wait a minute, hold up.
Ramses.
As you can see, his name is Ramesu. Everybody say Ramesu. The Greeks called him Ramesses. You see him sitting in the same meditative posture, right? And so you could say, well, Mr. Akua, that's just a coincidence. Well, wait a minute. Hang on, because if I were to take you to the temple of Abu Simbel, what you would see is not one statue of Ramesu. How many do you see? Call out your answer. 4. You see 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 colossal statues, right? Interesting thing. Watch this now. When you go in between these statues, you come inside of a temple. And inside that temple, something amazing happens only twice a year. How many times a year? Twice. Twice a year. The sun shines a beam of light down this corridor and lights up the face of the statue of the king. How many times a year? Twice. Only twice, on the day of his birthday and inauguration. Now I ask you, what type of architectural, astronomical, engineering, and mathematical expertise would you have to have in order to produce a temple like that? Ashe? But it goes even further. When I did more research, everybody say research. Research. Did more research, I discovered that this temple was not built from the ground up. It was actually carved out of the side of a mountain. So you thought these were statues right here, and they are statues, but they're also pillars holding up the ceiling. Ashe? But not only that, how many colossal statues of Ramesu did you say you saw? 4. I can't hear you. How many? 4. One more time. How many? 4. So now I was looking at this picture and my ancestral intelligence began to kick in and I began to ask the question, where have I seen 4 faces carved in the side of a mountain? Where have I seen? The founding fathers of America studied your history and your culture very thoroughly. And they wanted to create a nation as great as what your ancestors built. And they knew they couldn't do it without you. Ashrakwesi says somebody knows something about you that you don't even know about yourself. But we live in a society that has characterized us as a race of pimps, slayers, criminals, and thugs. We are not pimps, slayers, criminals, and thugs, brothers and sisters. Ashe? Ashe. We are master builders who built for eternity. Ashe? Ashe. So now, let me do a quick quiz. Which came first, Ramesu or Abraham Lincoln? Your answer? Ramesu. Right now, I bring multiple examples and evidence. So now we can go to the Washington Monument, tallest structure in Washington, D.C. Imagine my amazement when I get to Kemet once again, and what do I see? But there's Hatshepsut's Tekken.
Whoa, why it look
We called it a Tekken. Everybody say Tekken.
Tekken. 1022.
The Greeks called it an obelisk, but we called it what? Tekken. And here you see Hatshepsut's Tekken with the sun rising behind it. Ashe?
Ashe.
And the reason I took the picture from this angle is because it was used, among other things, as a sundial. You could tell what time of day it was by the way the sun casts a shadow, and it would be like the hands of a clock. Ashe? Ashe. Now, So here you see the Washington Monument in front of a reflecting pool. So as I go further into the Temple of Amun-Ra, what do I see? But man, there's a Tekken, there's a reflecting pool. Somebody knows something about you that you don't know about yourself, brothers and sisters. Ashe? There were always two Tekken on each side of the entrance of the temple. What happened to one of them?
They lit up.
They caught fire.
They got fire.
Okay.
Oh, they collapsed.
One of my students said, Mr. Akua, maybe it fell down. I said it couldn't have fallen down because we're master builders who built for eternity. It didn't fall down, it was knocked down, and it was stolen. And that's why you go to many of these great cities of the world. Place de Concourse in Paris. You go to Vatican City, just outside of Rome.